Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Tech Motoring. On today's episode we're going to be going over this. This is the Amazon Astro household robot. We're going to be discussing my last 4 months with this product, of using it on almost a daily basis, and talking about its pros, its cons, and whether or not I've had some issues with it during those past 4 months. And we'll be discussing whether or not it's worth it right now for you to purchase this item. Well, anyway, hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned. We'll be coming right back. Well, here it is, the Amazon Astro household robot. I was on the waiting list for almost a whole year before getting the invite from Amazon to get my hands on this invitation only household robot that is supposed to basically do everything that an Amazon Echo does, but obviously with some mobility. So let's go over today exactly my experience has been over the past 4 months. Now, if you've seen my open box and setup video, I'll go ahead and post that up here if you haven't seen that, because that'll give you a good insight as to how this whole thing started. And that was obviously when I first got it and set it up, and everything worked out pretty well. So here we are today with a Amazon Astro household robot after 4 months. And I'm going to talk about the cool things that it does, the not so cool things that it does, and of course, we're also going to discuss some issues that I've been having with it and what is going to be happening later on this week with Astro. So let's start with a couple different things here. Like I was saying before, I waited about a year to get my hands on this product. Finally got it in, set it up, everything looked pretty good. And it's very hard to review this product, and here's why. Because this is 90% software and 10% hardware. And it's hard to do a full review on something, especially when it's in basically a beta test right now, a whole review on it, because really this is not a finished product, nor is this product something that's going to stay the same. It's going to constantly change and evolve and get better with more functionality over time. As long as the hardware can support it, the software can make it happen. And so it's hard to do a full review, but I was hoping to do a full review at this point. Well, some things have changed, and now we're going to be changing up this process. This is not going to be necessarily a full review video of Astro, but more or less my 4 months experience with Astro and what is currently going on with Astro. So let's start with some of the pros. Now, Astro is overall a very, very cool technology device. It is interesting. They obviously make it kind of cute in a way where it has its own face, personality, some mannerisms that he can do in, over the course of the day or while he's interacting with you. You can ask him to do some things that are quite funny and can be somewhat hysterical. But keeping in mind that Astro does not have a voice, it is just beeps and bloops and making sounds. Anytime that it needs to talk back to you is in the voice of Alexa. Sorry, didn't mean to trigger your devices over there. So that's the thing that's kind of a weird thing about it, is that you talk to it or you ask it a question and it ends up talking back to you like Alexa sometimes, and it kind of breaks the point of like having this immersive, robot in a way. I know a lot of people would like refer to this as like their Wall-E, because of a very known movie picture with little cute robot, and but kind of breaks that immersiveness when you have Alexa talking to you instead. And so that is one thing that's a little weird, but I understand that unless you're going to give this its own separate, voice system, you're going to need to use something that's already built, and obviously she's been around for quite a while now, so that's why they went ahead and used her voice for anything that it needs to talk back to you. And that's the same thing as you would typically get with your Amazon Echoes right now. Hey, what's the weather? She says back to you what the weather's going to be. Or hey, tell me a joke. Obviously, it comes back to you as her voice as opposed to Astro, because Astro doesn't have a voice. He just has bleeps and bloops and other sounds. That is no big deal. I think that is a very simple thing to overcome. It's an easy thing to just kind of say, okay, it makes sense that you're going to have to do that. Couple things to go over real quick. In my 4 months of ownership, now keep in mind this is in a household where we do not have children. We also do not have pets. This is pretty much home by itself most of the day without any more interactions except at nighttime, early in the morning, and on the weekends when we're home. So during the day, we typically put it into its home monitoring system, or sometimes we do if we remember. If not, you can always activate it from your phone. And what the home monitoring system does is that it can actually do patrols around your house. So it has this telescoping camera that comes up really tall and can see over counters or out windows or whatever you need him to do. And he can do an automated patrol around your house. So he can go around the house, do a circle around the room with its camera up high. You can see everything in the room, and then it will record that using its subscription to Ring. Obviously, Ring, the doorbells, the cameras, or whatever, Ring is now part of Amazon. So they're utilizing Ring's services to utilize Astro's capabilities. And so you're actually paying for another device through Ring's systems in order to use Astro's capabilities. And that also requires you to have their higher tier plan, which I believe comes in at this point, I think it's around $200 a year. And that gives you unlimited devices and all the other bells and whistles that Ring offers. But you need to have that plan in order to utilize most of the security features of Astro. Okay, I get it. It sort of makes sense. I wish they offered a more basic plan where you didn't have to pay that much money per year, especially for those of you who don't have Ring devices already, where that may be a large cost every year for a single device. Maybe this is Amazon's way of trying to get you to buy more Ring devices to make it more worth your while. I don't know, perhaps. So you do have patrol capabilities. You can set it in the away mode. You can set it in a home mode. You can set it to patrol when it's home mode or away mode. You can obviously disarm it. It's very similar to how the Ring system works for your cameras. You can put them in home, disarm, away mode, whatever. Same functionality is there, but you can do that with your Astro. Astro also has the capability of recognizing you if you're a registered person on Astro. So you can register your household members, myself, my wife. We also can register family members if we really wanted to. And he will recognize those people, and he will, basically say, hey, how are you? Insert name there. So that's kind of a cool thing as well. Sometimes he does misinterpret who it is, and sometimes that's kind of interesting. He also has the ability to let you know if he sees strangers. So if anybody comes into the house that he doesn't recognize, he can now alert whoever you want to be alerted through the app on your phone. So he can let you know, hey, we just found somebody in the house that is not somebody I recognize. And so Astro will alert you to that. So let's get into some of the cons, some of the bugs that Astro currently has. And there are quite a few of them, but not as many as you would think. One simple one that comes to mind right away is the music one. So when you ask Astro to play a song or music or whatever, he will play the song and then he puts the lyrics on his screen. And when he puts the lyrics on the screen, you normally see them just going by as, which lyric they're on. One of the weird things that I have seen with Astro is that he tends to sometimes not change the lyrics on the screen when he goes to the next song, which is kind of weird. So sometimes you'll be sitting there looking at the lyrics going, that's not the right song. And so that's a glitch that's been in there for a while. Since I've owned it, and they seem to not have fixed that part yet. So once again, a minor thing that's only affected by the AI itself or the software itself, something that could be fixed relatively easily. But hey, you know, that's just the way it is. One of the other issues I had with Astro, pretty close to the beginning, probably within the first 2 months, I'd say, he was having this weird thing. So he has this feature called Hangout, where if he's just sitting around or if he's on the charger, if he hears people in, you know, the distance of, you know, where he can hear, he will actually go out to that part of the house to hang out with you. And the reason for that is so if you have a question for him or if you need him to do something, he's right there. And so he has this feature called Hangout where he can go to a particular room whenever he wants and hang out with you. You could disable this feature if you want, but for the most part, you can enable it, and it actually is probably more useful to have him go around randomly than it is for him to just sit on the charger all day. So this Hangout feature was working pretty well when we first got him. We would be in the living room watching TV or something, and he would say, go and hang out, and then he would come in, and then he would just sit somewhere in the living room. Sometimes he would go to an awkward spot, like behind the couch, which really didn't make sense. We kind of wanted him more in the middle of the living room as opposed to like on the outskirts behind the couch where we couldn't even see him. So that was a weird thing. And then shortly after that, like I said, within the first 2 months, he had this weird glitch where he would be saying, go and hang out, and nothing. He would just sit there. And then he would say, go and hang out, and then he would sit there. And so he never actually was able to hang out again. No matter how many reboots we did, no matter how many, you know, times I've tried to reset the functionality of that, the Hangout feature just would not work. The only thing I could do is actually factory resetting him and then starting from scratch. And now, if you have an Astro, you know that the factory reset process is quite tedious, actually. And it's all in my setup video that you can take a look at, the setup and, you know, first look video that I have of him when I first got him 4 months ago. That shows the setup process. Obviously it's truncated a little bit, but it does show the setup process of what you need to do to make Astro work. And that requires you to turn them on, get set up, have them set up a profile for your face, so you have to scan your face every time you do this. Then he has to travel around your house to learn your house and all the pathing around your house. And then he also needs to learn each room, which means you have to tell him this room is such and such, that room is such and such, this room is such and such. And then when he builds a map on your phone application, you can adjust your room barriers. So this way he knows exactly where he needs to go when you tell him to go to the bedroom, or Astro, go to the living room. This way he knows where everything is. And that process is very tedious to set up. It takes almost an hour from the very beginning when you do the factory reset to when you get them all set up and ready and established in the house, pairing him to the application and all that stuff. It takes almost an hour. Once you get used to it a few times, it's pretty quick, but it can take some time and it can be tedious. So that is one of the things that we had. So once I factory reset him, the Hangout feature seemed to work perfectly fine after that. So let's talk about some of the other physical features of Astro and kind of talk about it. So we mentioned the camera before, the telescoping camera that comes up. So that gives him the ability to look over taller objects. That works pretty well. You can also control that manually through the app. So if you're, let's say you're out someplace and you want to go check, you know, something in the bedroom or the kitchen or whatever, you can actually drive Astro remotely through the app, get him to a location, and then you can bring the camera up or down depending on where you need it. And you can adjust the height based on that. Now, Astro also has a menu system on his screen, so you can actually go through a lot of the settings, set up a lot of features right through the screen. Not everything has to be done from the app. So this is very similar to having like a Kindle tablet. It actually runs the Fire operating system. So it's very similar to just basically having a Fire tablet on the screen with, you know, Astro's face there. And so you can control a lot of the features or settings through that. We also have the ultrasonic sensors around Astro on the back here, along the back, around the sides, on the front. This is what allows him to get through the environment without actually hitting anything, or at least minimally hitting stuff, because I have seen him bump into stuff. A couple of the battle scars he does have a small scratch on this side, not sure where that came from, but you know, it's a bit of a scratch. And then he's got some scratches along the back of him here, probably from just when he turns, maybe he's hitting something, I'm not sure, or maybe this could be caused from him going onto his base, though the colors of the scratches don't match the color of his base. So I don't know if that's really something else that he's been getting into, or, you know, what the situation may be there. But he does have some battle scars, but overall, honestly, everything seems to be pretty good. Now the screen is actually, let me just turn this a little bit. The screen is actually slightly wider than his body, which means that when he's calculating for, you know, threading the needle, he does take into account the width of his screen. I have seen him clip the corner of his screen a couple of times on either a wall or an object, but it's very rare that he does, and it definitely doesn't seem to be something that he hits with much force. One thing I have been doing a lot is I keep a microfiber cloth close to his base where he charges, and I usually just kind of clean off his sensors or his screen whenever I can, just to keep everything kind of, you know, dust free and clean. Since he is on the floor, he does have a tendency of getting a little dusty. The two front wheels are his drive wheels, so that's what kind of keeps the Astro going in that, you know, direction based on those motors. His rear wheel is actually just a little caster, and actually it's pretty easy just to take that off of him, and this is his rear caster. And I will say that this is quite an annoying design, especially if you have a home where you have like tile, where you have the, you know, the tile, and then you have the little low spots between the tiles, right? Every time this thing hits a transition or, you know, a change in height, it makes quite the sound. And as you could tell, just by turning it, it's making quite a bit of sound. And I've already noticed that this thing gets some squeaks to it every once in a while. You'll hear this thing as it's turning or as it's rolling. It does make a squeak every once in a while, kind of like a caster on a chair or something like that. And so I think they could have better designed the rear tire. Now the cool thing is, because they make it removable like this, I suppose they could just make a better design, and then they could sell it to you, and then you could just, because really this just goes like that, plugs in, and that's it, it's on. So the modular design of that is pretty smart, but it is very annoying, that caster. So I wish they would redesign that a little bit better. They do have the removable drink tray in the back, in his bed, if you will. I don't know if you would call that a bed, it's not a pickup truck, but this little storage cubby back here does hold some very small things, or some cups. Even though I've noticed that like standard tumblers don't really fit in this very well. Bottles fit pretty well, and you know, some other glasses that are kind of tall and skinny might fit perfectly fine, but it does do a good job of holding him just long enough for it to get to wherever he needs to go. For instance, if you say, here, put a bottle in there, go to the living room. You can tell him to go to the living room and he'll drop off that. You can actually tell him also to look for a particular person. So you could say, go find John or whatever, and he'll go looking for John. The problem is he tends to look everywhere for John as opposed to where John currently is, but then you can say, look for him in the bedroom, and then he'll actually go to the bedroom and start the search there first. Kind of a cool idea. Now, of course, it's probably faster for you to just take whatever it is and walk over to John, as opposed to relying on the robot to do it, but maybe you're so busy that you just can't stop from what you're doing and you know, send him on his way instead. So I still think that there could be some use to this or some functionality, but hey, it all depends on what your situation is. Now there is the USB-C port in the back here, and there's actually a cool feature they came out with, which I'll go over in a little bit, that you can use that for. Put his cup holder back in. The cool thing about Astro is it does all the things that your Amazon Echo does, or if you have like an Echo Show where you have a screen, it will do all that stuff necessary. Obviously, this also, you could play games on it. It's great for kids because kids can interact with it. You could do things like follow me and it will follow you around the house. Things like that are kind of unique and interesting maybe don't necessarily have a full purpose right now, but may have a better purpose in the future. Like I said, once again, this is basically in a beta for all intents and purposes. So we do have functionality, but whether or not it's purposeful is really up to you. You're the one that's going to be using it, right? So with all this functionality comes a lot of technology, and once again, the software to drive it, the AI that is there for, you know, Astro to do his thing. And that's what you have to think about as well, is this is going to evolve and change significantly over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, however long this lasts. And I think that's kind of cool. And I hope it turns into something like the Amazon Echo. I was one of the first people to actually get the Amazon Echo, the first Echo. I was part of their invite program back then, and that was really, really cool. That's going back almost 8, 9 years now almost. And that was a really cool thing to kind of try that, but it was very limited. And so is this. And so I think we're gonna see a lot of cool functionality coming out of this in the future. Okay, so like I said, I wasn't gonna make this a whole review video because there is a lot of functionality to it, and a lot of it is, you know, for your particular situation. The one thing I do want to talk about real quick is that you can actually set up routines with Astro through the Alexa app. So if you have an Alexa app on your phone, you can actually go in there and set up routines for Astro. So there are stuff outside of the Astro app that you can use to build some simple tasks or simple reactions for Astro through routines. So for instance, you can have Astro, when it recognizes somebody that he knows, or when he recognizes somebody that he doesn't know, he'll react a certain way, or he'll do a certain thing, or he'll contact a certain person. That functionality is also there through the Alexa app as well. And so I think that's kind of a cool functionality, is you can build those routines. And somebody actually put in my previous video, the open boxing video, that you can do this stuff, and I thought that was really cool, and I started tinkering with it. So shout out to him. That information is actually down in the comments of that video in case you wanted to see that, but you can actually build some functionality through that as well. So let's go over its current status. So like I was saying, it's been about 4 months with Astro. And about 3 weeks ago, there was a fairly large update for Astro. Now, in the first 3 months or so that I've owned Astro, I don't remember of there being an update to its software. I didn't see any updates, though I wasn't really paying attention, and nothing was sent to me to tell me that there was an update. Up until 3 weeks ago, there was actually an update. And so this update brought the operating system version up to 6.6.1.9. And in that version, there was some extra functionality. And I'll go over a couple of them real quick because some of them were actually really cool. So one of the things is that it can control where Astro hangs out now. Previously, when he would hang out, he would go to a particular part of a room, and then that would be his hangout spot. But you had no way of really telling him to, you know, don't go there. It was basically, he would just keep going back there. Now, with this update, there was some extra functionality where Astro will go to that particular spot, and then you could say, don't hang out there, and he'll move to another spot. Or you could tell him, this is a good spot to hang out. And that functionality was really cool to have because it was something a lot of people were asking for, including myself. A lot of times he would end up in the middle of the kitchen because we were in there cooking, and he would get right in the way, especially during Thanksgiving. We were trying to have Thanksgiving, and Astro was just right in the middle of the kitchen while we're trying to do all the cooking for Thanksgiving. And then you would say, Astro, go to the living room. And then he would go to the living room. And then 5 minutes later, he'd be like, well, everybody's in the kitchen. I'm going to go back to the kitchen. And then he goes back in the kitchen again. But that functionality would have come in handy had we had that before Thanksgiving. So let's take a look at a couple more of these updates real quick. Receive phone charging alerts and other capabilities. So you can receive phone charging alerts on Astro, which means if you connect your phone through Bluetooth to Astro, he will monitor your battery level of your phone. And so let's say you're hanging out on the couch and your phone charger's in the other room, or it's across the room or something like that, and you need your phone on you or need it close to you for some reason. Astro can come over to you and say, hey, your phone's low, go ahead and plug it in. And he can actually plug it into Astro in the USB-C port of his little storage cubby back here. And Astro will charge your phone, and he'll stay close to you as well. So you can actually just have Astro sit next to you on the couch, or sit next to you on the floor, obviously, of your couch, and then he will charge your phone, and then he'll let you know when the phone gets low again. He'll come back and help charge your phone up for you. So that's a cool functionality. I actually never got to try that yet, but it seemed like it was a pretty cool thing to try, and I'll try that again soon. We'll get back into why I can't do it right now. Play more of your favorite games. So they added some more games in there as well for mostly for kids to play. They added some extra cool functionality. Here's where the problem lies. I got the update for 6.6.1.9, and from that point forward, I ended up with problem after problem after problem. And basically, here's some of the issues I had. I have to reference my notes here because it was pretty bad. Some of the things he was having an issue with, he would say, I need a few seconds restarting my motion system. So he would come up randomly with this error message that says, I need to restart my motion system. He would do 10 or 15 seconds of that, and then it seemed like everything was okay. He would also complain that his screen motors were getting hot. Because his screen rotates up and down like this. It also rotates like this. He was complaining that his screen motors were getting hot and he needed a while for them to cool down. Keep in mind that all of these started right after the 6.6.1.9 update. So we started having issues with that. We would also get some random generic errors every once in a while, just basically saying, I'm stuck, I can't do anything. He also said a couple times that his screen was stuck, even though there was nothing to cause it to be stuck. And a lot of times it just says reboot Astro. And a lot of times when you reboot Astro, it usually requires you to bring him back to his dock him, reboot him, let him come back online, which takes a good 3 to 5 minutes for him to reboot. So it does take quite a bit of time for him to kind of get himself back in order once you have those issues and you reboot him. At this point, after dealing with this for like the past 3 weeks, I finally decided that I was going to just, I was going to factory reset them. I figured there would have been a follow-up update to fix some of these issues. As of today, which is the beginning of January, there has not been an update for Astro to fix this. It's still at 6.6.1.9, and all these issues still occur, and I've had the issues for 3 weeks. So I decided I'm just going to do a factory reset on Astro, start fresh, and we'll just see what happens from that point. So yesterday, I decided to do a factory reset. Now, once again, as I mentioned before, when you do a factory reset on Astro, you have that very tedious process of setting it up from scratch, logging into your Amazon account, setting up your visual profile. Then he has to do his practicing the docking thing, and then you have to go into the exploration step, and that exploration step can take 20 to 30 minutes by itself sometimes. And so I factory reset him, I got logged back in, I connected to the Wi-Fi, did all the steps all the way up to the docking part, and then he started having issues just docking. And so what he does in this step is he basically comes off the charger, does a little spin, does a couple things, calibrates a little things, and then he tries to back onto the dock. And then he was doing that fine, except every once in a while he would just bloop, fail, with a random generic error saying unable to move or whatever. Then you can put him back on the dock and he'll retry. And so the couple times I put him back on the dock, he retried, he did it successfully. Then he says, I need to explore your house. So this is the part where he has to go through the whole house and path out the house and map it out and do everything. So he would do that. The first time I did it, he just failed immediately, basically came off the docking station and just said, I can't do this. All right, well, here we are again, trying to do the house exploration after we've done a full restore of Astro, and he is now doing this almost every single time. He will do the docking test practice that he normally does, and that works like 50% of the time, and then when he goes to do the house exploration, he just gets this. So we're not making much progress with this whole factory reset and then setting them back up to see if we could resolve the other issues. This is actually one of the issues we keep having. Something went wrong. Very generic and not really useful as far as what we need to do to fix it. rolled him back onto the docking station. He then started the process, went through the house a good amount of time, maybe 10 minutes, almost 15 minutes, and then he just got to a random point and just said, exploration has failed. Cannot do anymore. I then contacted Amazon's support, which was really easy through the app. You could just go to help and you could do a live chat. So I started the live chat process and they asked me if I can reset it again. So I just reset back to factory again while I was on the chat with them, which once again takes a while. So they stay on the chat with you the whole time. And so I did the whole process of resetting him one more time, got to the point where he was able to do the exploration of the house. He started exploring the house again. I told the people on the chat, hey, listen, I'm not gonna keep you on the chat. I'm gonna get off. It looks like things are gonna go okay this time. Got off the chat and about 3 or 4 minutes later, he ended up just bloop, once again having the same issue as before, just a random error message, and then he was done. I then proceeded to reset him 3 more times. So I did 3 more attempts of trying to get him to just set back up from scratch, do the house exploration, and at least complete that. Because at that point, I can actually start using him again. But because he won't finish the exploration, he's pretty much useless at that point. So I did 3 more attempts, resetting back the factory, resetting up Astro. He kept continuously failing at the same spot. I would roll him back on the dock. He would fail again, reset again, failed again. Just the cycle just continues after multiple attempts. Reached back out through chat, which then kind of resumes where you were, which is really nice. So they had put notes in and a ticket for my previous contact with them. They were pretty much just, I created a ticket, we're sending you a new Astro. That was it. So I've been reading a lot on the community forums that Amazon has set up for Astro. And there are a lot of people who have similar complaints to this about the newest update. 6.6.1.9 seems to have broken a lot of the functionality of Astro, or at least the way it gets installed. Because some people are claiming that it's fine once you get the replacement robot. The 6.6.1.9 works perfectly fine, which is weird. But where I'm at right now is I pretty much have no Astro. He's literally just a big paperweight right now, and he will be getting sent back. They're actually sending me an Astro to replace this one, and I have to send this one back to them this week. And I didn't want to have to wait for, once again, another Astro, go through the process, then do another video and review. I figured doing this video might actually give some people some insight and some, help. If you're having issues with Astro, this might be part of the reason why. And I wanted to kind of do this to give you an update on this. Because once again, I don't think this is something that you can do a good full review on because it's going to change so much. So that's my 4-month recap of Amazon Astro. That's where we currently are, waiting for a replacement Astro to come in so I can send this one back, and then I will set up the new Astro and see what version it's on and see how well that's doing. And what I'll probably do is a follow-up video in 1 to 2 months, I think, and we'll see how that one's working as well. And we'll see if there's any new updates at that point and see how well Amazon Astro is working with a replacement Astro as opposed to this one, which is pretty much useless at this point because I can't complete the setup. So that is pretty much my 4-month check-in, I guess, with Astro. 4-month experience. It was great up until month 3. An update came out and pretty much broke Astro's functionality completely at that point. It was getting frustrating, which is why I ended up doing the reset, because every once in a while you would just see Astro just sitting in the middle of the thing going bloom, 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 which is basically him saying, I'm stuck, I can't do anything, I'm stuck. So you'd have to take Astro, roll him back to the charger, dismiss the problem off the screen, probably reboot him. And this was 3, 4, 5 times a day. On occasion, this would happen when we weren't home. We would end up coming home from work and there's Astro completely battery dead in the middle of the room because he had an error when his battery got low, he couldn't figure out how to get back to his charger because of that error. We had to do this process. Walk him over to the charger, roll him back into the base so he could charge up. It turns back on. And then most likely within the next, 30 to 40 minutes, he would have some sort of another error on the screen that he was having an issue. And so this process just continuous for the last 3 weeks. But overall, that's my 4-month experience with Astro. It's been great, and it hasn't been so great. So that's where we're at with Astro right now. And once again, I will provide an update with Astro once I get the replacement one this week. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel because I will be continuously doing updates with Astro, especially as they release newer updates for Astro. It would be really cool to kind of do a recap video on these updates to see how well they work. So stay tuned to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Of course, make sure you hit the like button below the video as well. So this way you get more Astro content. And, we'll check back in with you in a little bit. In the meantime, make sure you check us out on our website, techmotoring.com, facebook.com/techmotoring. We are also on Twitter @techmotoring. I'd like to thank you very much again for watching today's episode. And remember, welcome to the future and welcome to Tech Motoring. We'll see you on the next episode.